racist grandpas, cheating housewives, and more Boston accents than a Red Sox game.
And you're so freaking weird.
You're a moron!
You are.
Prime's We Were Liars, which is not based off my ex and her girlfriends, has such a crazy twist ending it'll have you saying,
I see dead people.
In this video, we'll be taking a deep dive into the show, its hidden symbolism, and how it potentially sets up a sequel with the other We Were Liars books. So spend the summer of 16 with me and confront your unconscious bias.
Are you saying I'm racist?
Because here we go. We Were Liars follows Cadence Sinclair Eastman, a privileged teenager who spends her summers on her family's luxurious island in Martha's Vineyard. And when she isn't LARPing as a character from a Nicholas Sparks novel, Katie hangs with her cousins Johnny and Mirren and friend Gat. The four make up the group known as the LIARS, a name given to them by the Sinclair family for all the antics they got up to as children. To really understand our story, we have to go back to the summer of 2008. This is where Katie meets her future love interest, Gat. Gat's uncle is longtime partners with Katie's Aunt Carrie, and with Gat's dad having recently passed away, Gat was brought to the island in the hopes he could put this tragedy behind him and make new friends. Over the years, Gat becomes like one of the family, solidifying himself as one of the liars, but it isn't until 8 years later in the summer of 2016 that Katie develops romantic feelings for him. Most of We Were Liars centers around this summer, in particular a strange event that sees Katie having nearly drowned to death with no recollection of what happened. The doctors will call this post-traumatic amnesia, and if things couldn't get any weirder, her entire friends and family won't tell her what happened, so much of the show centers around Katie getting to the bottom of this mystery. Think of the show told in 3 parts. We have the events leading up to the incident in 2016, the incident itself, and the aftermath in 2017. And to understand the events leading up to the incident, we have to know a bit more about the Sinclair family, and in particular its patriarch Harris. He rules with an iron heart, and anything he says goes. There's little room for emotion in his world, as he believes emotion makes you weak, and he'll often pit his children against each other to earn his love and affection. This is best shown through their grandmother's black necklace, which would often be given to a child when they were proud of them. This is the same black necklace that is mysteriously wrapped around Katie's hand when she washes ashore. Harris also uses his vast power and wealth to control his daughters, Carrie, Penny, and Bess. If they don't do what he says, he could cut them off from his vast fortune, and each one of his kids has their own reason for wanting his money, whether it be covering up abuse, fraud, or corruption by various members of the family. In the world of We Were Liars, money is king, but all this wealth, which Harris accrued over the years as a newspaper magnate, comes with an even more nefarious undertone, a desire to maintain a social hierarchy based on race and class. Throughout the course of the season, it becomes apparent that Harris does not want Katie to date Gat because of his race. Harris treats Gat like one of the help, like in this scene where he asks Gat to take the dogs out and clean up after them, or when he watches Katie and Gat together and suggests Gat read Wuthering Heights, a story about a brown boy trying to fit into high society but is never accepted, something that leads him to go mad. But the biggest example is that of his daughter's relationship with Ed. He basically tells her that she'll be out of the will if she marries him, and considering she spent all her money to save her son Johnny from jail, she makes the gut-wrenching decision to say goodbye to the love of her life. As kids, the Liars are oblivious from the ways in which racism has seeped into the very being of the island they love. Katie often refers to the island as a fairy tale place with castles, dragons, princes, and princesses. But as they grow older, these cracks emerge, ultimately leading the kids to realize just how broken and make-believe their quote-unquote perfect family really is. This takes us to the night of the incident. It starts with Katie confronting her grandfather on his racist beliefs. He accidentally trips and cracks his head on the ground, where he'll have to be medevaced off the island. With the parents off to take care of Harris, the 4 teens are left on the island by themselves, where they concoct a devilish plan that just might save their family. They will burn the island to the ground in the hopes that it will disrupt the toxic cycle of greed, inheritance, and power that has grasped the family for centuries. It's both a dramatic statement and act of defiance, if not an example of naive teenage idealism. By burning the place down, it will teach their family a lesson and purify a foundation they believe was built on hate. So the plan is pretty simple. Katie, Mirren, and John will set up the fire, with Gat preparing the getaway boat. But things do not go according to plan. After starting the fire, Katie is reminded of her grandmother's beloved black pearl necklace, the physical representation of who was the most loved. She can't explain why, but she felt compelled to rush back into the fire and get them. At the same time, Gat notices that Katie's late, and fearing that she might be trapped in the fire, goes in after her. And in a tragic twist of fate, as Katie exits the home, Gat goes into it only for him to be swept up in the fire and killed. Johnny and Mirren die too. The resulting explosion, caused by the fire reaching the gas line, propels Katie into the water, where she loses consciousness and gets this post-traumatic amnesia. If you're wondering how this writing got on her hands, she and Gat wrote these messages on each other's hands the night of the fire. This is something the LIARS often did as kids. It explains why Johnny, Mirren, and Gat never visited her in the hospital. They were dead. Every scene featuring them, they're ghosts visible only to Katie. However, as we'll see in the final scene, this isn't entirely the case. In fact, Johnny, Mirren, and Gat being ghosts are hinted at all throughout the season, such as here,
Katie, tell me a ghost story.
or even the first line Katie says to Gat.
Are you real?
Only by reconciling her past and connecting with her friends is Katie able to overcome her trauma and solve the mystery. But this still leaves a big question. How come the family kept their deaths from Katie, and how do they not know it was the teens who did it? The answer lies in Harris, who after his brain injury returns to the island next summer with Katie and the rest of the family. He's the only one who knew that the LIARS burned the place down. He paid off the fire marshals and went with a fake story about how an errant spark hit some improperly stored fuel, which started the fire. This story benefits both Harris, Katie, and the family. Harris is saved from tarnishing his legacy and the embarrassment of his grandchildren burning down their summer home, while Katie and the family are spared the reality of what actually happened. Better to believe it was an accident than something of their own doing. In the final scenes of the series, we see how the LIARS' actions weren't in vain. The tragedy has brought the family together. The sisters no longer argue. Ed, who was once shunned from the family, is brought back into the fold, as well as Bess's ex. But this still leaves Katie with a decision. Now knowing the truth of what actually happened, does she maintain the status quo with a story that props up the existing patriarchal structure, or does she break free from it? This culminates with a Time magazine reporter coming to do a puff piece on Harris Sinclair's legacy, one which portrays the Sinclairs as the ideal white upper-class family. But Katie won't go along with this facade.
I'm just really not into fairy tales anymore.
She breaks free from the family and the island itself, riding the boat off into the sunset. Her voiceover tells us that she drops the Sinclair last name and takes her father's. She'll even throw her grandmother's necklace into the water, an object which was used to pit the family against each other. It's a contrast to Gat's necklace gift, which is one of unconditional love. While We Were LIARS ultimately is a tragedy, it has a message of hope. That love can overcome even the most powerful hate, and that we can ultimately change for the better. But the series has some threads that suggest there might be more stories in the We Were LIARS universe. For those unfamiliar, We Were LIARS is a series of 3 novels. The third novel, We Fell Apart, is set to release in November of 2025. But if you paid careful attention, these show hints of a season 2 based off the second novel, Family of Liars, which is set on the same island when the Sinclair sisters, Carrie, Bess, and Penny, were teenagers. Carrie tells her sister about something tragic that happened when they were 16, the same age as Katie, so this will probably be a big flashback season. There's also mention of a 4th Sinclair sister, Rosemary, who passed away. With Carrie having drug and alcohol addiction, it could be assumed that she had something to do with her sister's death, and that season 2 will be all about uncovering this story. And I think the ghost of her dead son, which she sees in the final scene, will be the segue into that story. But what do you think is next for We Were LIARS, and what did you think of the show? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.